still not gonna go
Okay,
back
just
out.
thought it just coming in. It's coming in.
There it is. We live.
Early in the morning, not worried about tomorrow, 'cause I know that it's a brand new day. Started making breakfast, turned the radio on play, 'cause I know that it's a brand new day. Realizing my own strength, I'm keeping hope that lives deep inside me. I feel the sun on my skin, pushing me to greatness, 'cause I know that I can make it. Don't wanna win today, but I've got bills to pay, 'cause I know that I know. Situations come my way, sometimes I get frustrated. I know. I'm so blessed, y'all. It's a new day, a new day.
No, it didn't. Like a flower springing up, reaching for the sun. You can begin again. Let your day begin. Chasing my dreams, making things a reality, 'cause I know that nothing can stop me. It's a brand new day. I have a smile on my face, 'cause I know about His love and grace. Yeah. 'Cause I know that it's a brand new day. Living my life, trying to love everybody right. Got my sword and my shield. Oh, baby, we're gonna win. I know that it's a brand new day. It's a lovely day, lovely day, oh lovely day, lovely day. I know that it's a brand new day.
All right, hello. It is Patriots Day 9/11, and we are here together on the Community of Restoration and Enlightenment, the Core of You. So very thankful to have our family and special guests with us today, Dr. Joseph Lathan and his wife Pamela Lathan, and we are Kid and Bianca Page. We always like to give a shout out to our sister Danielle Page. That's our theme song.
What up?
Brand new day. And she also provided these beautiful straight out of church Belleville Faith Assembly shirts. And when you put it all together, straight out of church, and just do it. And speaking of doing it, we are talking about relationships and sex.
That's nice.
That
was very provocative.
So what do you do to create that connectivity beyond the bedroom? We are talking, and I'll let each couple introduce like how long they've been together, but we really want to talk about what you can do within your relationship to foster that connectivity and intimacy. So I will allow our guests to kick it off. Tell us how long you've been together just together and married, to give the audience and our community just some background.
You think you have the dates down?
No,
The
they always say to let the women speak first. So I'm going to defer to my wife to open up for us. Pamela.
Okay, so in May of 2021, we'll be married 19 years.
Wow.
And we would be together 23 years, I believe, because we were actually together probably about 4 years or so before we were able to get married. So, yeah, we had to test the waters and see if the waters would flow freely with us, And, yeah, it was an investment because he was in Michigan, I was in New York, so we definitely had to test it out to make sure that we could bring it together, and we did that.
Yeah.
So am I hearing there was also a long distance element to the relationship in the initial phases?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's good
Ooh,
to
so
know.
that's going to definitely point into this, because when you long distance, and see, we did that too for 18 months. So when you long distance, you ain't having no sex, right? When you long
Exactly.
distance, unless you flying, to do one
A
another.
lot of prison 5 miles.
We're not having that
Today, there's a lot of
texting
phone
or
and
sexting.
and
Yeah. We did that. It was
Sexting,
great.
right?
Yeah.
So as y'all can see, this is going to be an adult conversation.
So sorry,
today.
y'all
we are
Send the
not.
children in the room.
Yeah, send the baby to the room.
They can't handle it.
No apologies for this, because we walk in our truth. We live in it every day, and we are going to talk to you about. So I want to get into something, because as we just gonna get into this, right? Because as we were like brainstorming about how to get this like a nice provocative conversation and the title for it all.
Right.
I said something about intimacy, and about that. And Uncle was like, well, wait a minute now, hold up. Intimacy and sex is different. That's different. You know what I mean? We talk about that a lot. We talk about the different phases of intimacy, right? And so, what do you mean by that? Because a lot of people say, and let's just make this, and listen, let's just be real, let's just be straight. Like, men a lot of times look at this different from women. You say intimacy to a woman, it's going to mean something totally different from the majority of men. I'm not going to put all of us in the same boat, right? I'm not going to do that to us. But from the majority of men, a lot of men will just, intimacy, they automatically think sex in the room. But when you say it to a woman, she's going to name like security, financial security, a prayer partner. She's going to name all those. So what do you mean? What is intimacy? What's the difference in intimacy and sex?
You're right in the house, but a lot of it is foreplay. This is really what intimacy means without even going to the extremes, and I'm sorry, of insertion. Okay, I'm Dr. Joseph Layton, so I'm gonna come at you guys from some angles, but I'm gonna use the proper language.
Right.
Okay, so there's a part of sex is comprised of this physical element.
Right.
But intimacy, I can have sex to your mind. And that's how you want to cultivate relationships to be lasting long time. Because if I only have your body, if you're only attracted to my body, then once that goes, what do we have left?
Right.
So, and I'll say this real quick, just quickly, what do I mean by it? Intimacy, when you start to get beyond the age of testosterone and menopause, which is what we all go through as aging adults. There's a study that says that men after the age of 40, they lose 1% of their testosterone after every year.
Wow.
So that means the sex drive continues. So as horny as you guys think that men are, men slow down too.
Right.
Okay?
That's probably why they get more faithful. But see, that's a true truth, because as Mother Nature was slowing y'all down, a lot of women hit their sexual peak right at that exact moment.
Exactly.
But, other things.
But I have to say that from a woman of a certain age, and because I am menopausal, no longer premenopausal. This is real menopause going through here. Okay. There are times where, and I've read that, sometimes the sex drive is not there. And even as a Scorpio woman, and always being very sexual in my life, sometimes I don't want to have sex. Sometimes I just want to lay and cuddle. Or sometimes I can't even cuddle that long because I'll start having hot flashes. So it's like I'll be pushing away.
I don't mind.
But you have to reinvent things for the relationship to work and to continue, because we plan to be together a long time, right? I'm not going away. I'm not starting this over again. No, I'm not doing this again.
So let's dissect that, because we use those words, and I know you guys know what it means. I think we kind of know what it means. But what does that mean? Reinvent. What is that? What do you say? We like to say. What do you say? What does that look like, babe? That's like, what does that look like to reinvent?
Wow.
What does that mean?
I'd love to add in the perspective of what I think reinvention means, because as you get older, scientifically, women lose estrogen, so that's why their sex drive diminishes. Men lose testosterone, that's why our sex drive diminishes. So you have to focus on the 3 T's.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, I gotta type this in.
All right. You have to focus. This is how you continue longevity in a marriage, and sex life has changed over time, because it's going to.
It will.
So there's no doubt. So the three T's are this: it's time, touch, and talking.
Ooh, I like that.
Now they have no order.
I got you.
Okay?
They're all equal.
And you have to use them where you see deficiencies, when one is lacking.
I like that.
So there's a consistent rotation of this to keep your marriage invigorated.
Right.
And to be able to still feel. And then when you get some sexual or physical things in, oh my Lord. It's the icing on the cake.
That's the sprinkles and the whipped cream on it all. Now you just, you're humming while you eat now. No, I love that. The 3 T's. And so B and I have been blessed to have 2 children. And she went through, time is crazy right now, so it was 2 years ago? The surgery.
Yes,
the surgery. Okay, 2 years ago.
In July.
Lord, with all this going on, you would think it was a little over 2 years.
Right.
So after we had the 2 children, the doctor came in and looked at me and said, no sex for a certain amount of days. After both children, right?
You have to wait 6 weeks.
6 weeks, right?
6 weeks.
And when she had a surgery 2 years ago, which was sort of life-threatening, which was really serious, the doctor came in and said 6 months. No, 3 months.
Yeah, we had to take it a little longer.
He said 3 months. She said 3 months. Yeah, you cannot have sex for 3 months after this surgery. So I'm like, what? Like, are you serious? But the surgery that she went through, and what the possibilities behind that made me definitely respect. Like, first of all, okay, so either 3 months without sex, or she could be dead and gone. You know what I mean? So, really, you don't even, it's not even an option behind that. Right. So we had to reinvent.
Right, but what was important about that is that you were at the doctor's appointments with me. We were talking about, because a lot of couples, they don't have intimacy even when it comes to their health. Like, they don't talk about what's going on with their health. And that should not be off limits, because if I had been hiding from him, sometimes as women we'd be like, I don't want you to see that part of me. He needed to be in the room. Right. I mean, and as a matter of fact, when I was nursing, for newsflash for people, when you nurse, that is like, you are actually climaxing. You are actually emitting the same hormone levels that you do when you have an orgasm, which means a woman who is nursing really don't want to have sex with her husband, because she's already several times a day.
I never thought about that.
So I never thought about that. For 14 and 18 months, and then he's looking at me like, And I'm also like, what used to be my fun bags are now a food source. All messed up. I mean, for me, that was harder than the 6 weeks he's talking about and the months after the surgery, because it was just like relearning my own body.
Wow, and that's interesting because, you know, most of y'all know I wasn't able to conceive. So by you saying that, you teaching me something new that I've never heard of before about, you know, when you're breastfeeding and stuff like that. So that's interesting.
And I had to talk to him about it. Like, babe, I'm not just being, you know, selfish. Right? I'm exhausted.
Right.
You know, and I wasn't eating enough, so I became underweight.
Your nourishment.
So we had to, as you guys said, reinvent.
Yeah.
And I will say this: in those moments where we couldn't really do the physical thing, our prayer life, because we're spiritual people.
Come on.
We're spiritual people. Our prayer life went to levels of intimacy that orgasms and stuff will never be able to get.
So can I ask you? Did you see it like a fasting type?
It was like,
connotation?
it was like, exactly. Cause, alright, so it was like, I can't get this lustful fleshly thing. And listen, I'm being real, I'm a Scorpio man, so I want this. So I'm like, God, Father, on high. So you help me on high. I need you to really be able to help me tame this thing in me. You know what I mean? Cause you go from, let's be honest. Even with the children, like she was saying, I went from single to being together, from dating to being engaged, and then we're married. So you newlywed. So you like rabbits. You all over the house, all over the roof, just everything on chandelier, just acting a fool. And then boom, this baby comes, and the doctor comes in and says, you can't do that. But our prayer life, which we had already established before, in our, as Bishop Cox used to say, in our courting phase, when we were just dating one another, we established that we were going to have a prayer life. We didn't know that our prayer life was going to lend to the healthiness of our relationship the way it did when we couldn't do sex. So we started.
Fit into the 3 T's, the talking.
So I think that's the talking.
The talking, the touch, and what was
Well, because you have to remember, you have to have something in your relationship more than just sex. Right. Okay, relationships about a plethora of communication, of give and take. You know, give and take. You know, it's not always about sex. Sex is just an added pleasure, you know, that we're used to being in tune to. Right. Okay. Because it did slow down a lot when we were dating and when we first got married. Yeah, it was on and popping. Right. You know, but even sometimes, and I'm sorry to have to share this, but my husband has a very high sexual drive. Me? Plus he's younger than me. So sometimes with me, it's not a good point. You want to do what? It's like, okay. But then when we get in there, you know, baby, it's on and popping. But sometimes, you know, we have to step aside from that and communicate and talk. You know, it's not all about the sex all the time. Because I've had a lot of surgeries, some surgeries and times where I couldn't have sex or make love to my husband for a number of weeks or whatever. And it's like... But I often say, we have a lifetime of this. Yeah. So I want to still be able to be intimate when we're in our 90s. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like that. I want to, yes, you know. I look at your grandmother. Your grandmother is full of life. Vibrant, and, vibrant. And she can have a boyfriend now, she turn it out. So I'm praying every day. And my auntie May was like that. My mom's sister May. She was a phenomenal. She was like that. And we could talk to May about just about everything. My mom was a little bit, you know, reserved. But my auntie May, and even our cat, we could go to her and share sex stories with them as well. So. No doubt. No doubt. So you have to have more than just the bedroom. Yes. So your relationship, the bedroom is just a component of your relationship. Lord. It's not. So here it is. So for you that are just dating, and maybe going on even in your marriage, unfortunately, hopefully not, prayerfully not.
if you're looking for the person that you want to be with, that you're calling your boo, bae, and all that, if it's all based and focused on the sex, there's going to be a problem. Because you got finances, you have emotional differences, lows and highs that you'll go through. You got to deal with family. I mean, there's so much. Children.
You just prompted a question. So what happens to these single people who don't go deep into a relationship because the sex is not that great?
You know what I'm saying?
They do everything. They love their career. They love everything about them. Like, God, the sex is not that great. Right. So if it's still based on, I'm coming at it from that angle. If it's not based on sex, what happens? How many men have women pass up? Good men, because the sex life wasn't that great.
And so that's what we're saying. We're not saying that it's not important.
Right.
Because it's very important. And to some people it's more important to some other things, but we're saying it can't be the only important. Right? It can't be the only important thing. Because if it's just solely based off of that, and see, this is where we talk about a lot of times on the Core of You about communication, effective communication, because there is some communication that's not effective. Right. But then we also talk about, we added this earlier this year, that you got to have effective communication and reciprocation. So if you put it out there, expect it to come back.
All right.
You know what I mean? Or if you expect it to come, you need to also be delivering it. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes people will have an expectation that they're not willing. On the streets, a lot of times they say you date somebody that's got champagne taste with just a beer butter. You know what I mean? So they want all of this, but they really only bring to the table this little thing. So that's why it's important that you have the total package. Right. So when we didn't have it, our prayer life we had to step that up. We had to look at other ways of intimacy to really connect with one another.
Working out together.
We worked out together, which was amazing.
Remember we read
a couple of books together. Like we at one time we were doing a chapter like every night we would read a chapter to each other before we go to bed.
But I think you guys are not mentioning like the ultimate foundation.
Right.
Both of our relationships.
Yes.
Being born and raised in the same organization.
Right.
You know, we have that in common.
Yes.
So some people don't have that. Like they come to church and they're not with their mate. They go home and it's a different life. Their mate is not a part. And we spend a lot of time in church and church functions and stuff. So that's a foundation for us as well.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how we got together. And that's how y'all got together. Through our church, you know.
And I think you're touching on something, because when you do too many things apart, what can you share together?
Yes.
So even if you may not be a church goer, but what do you do together? I have had to get more into sports. Just to that's where I reciprocate with him. Okay. Go to
that's
some
the
games.
time. That's the time.
And I think another thing we all shared, which I'm hearing, is we had some distance in the beginning of our relationships that made it not only be focused on the physical.
Right. Exactly.
So
that's so
people
true.
need to manufacture that, even if they wait a little bit. Maybe that's the weight.
Right.
You know.
That's so true.
And that's the time where you really find if this is where you really want to be.
Right.
This gives you an opportunity to say, is this going to be a lasting relationship? Even though it's not really concealed or brought together until you actually come together.
Right.
You know, but at least you're starting out with the foundation and with the friendship that you were able to maintain for the times that you were apart.
That's so true, because that's the time where the most rich dialogue is going to happen. You're forced. The text messages, the email.
Right.
I can tell this story. I was working at Ford Motor Company when me and Pam met, and she was working with Snapple at HR, and I would go and then I had to come back home, and then we would text message. We didn't even have we had an intranet. It wasn't even an internet.
It got to be so bad. They turned my service off.
I think I helped get a service cut off.
Exactly.
You can't be disciplining people.
I brought it with us out to California. I don't know if you know.